Hello, and welcome to the How Long to Beat podcast. I'm Rick, as always, joined by my lovely co-hosts Alex.
Hello.
And Paula.
Hello.
And we are, as always, going to be talking about games. And huzzah, everyone's beaten something this week. Woo! Big round of applause for the podcast team. Yay!
I mean, we are coming up towards the summer months, right? Which are like, you get a little less gaming, a little more handheld.
La 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 la.
I mean, you haven't beaten that much.
I've beaten consistently. I've also retired consistently. So we'll also talk retirements as well as what we've been playing. And there's always stuff there. This week's topic is user interfaces or UI in games, which I think Paula's going to be taking the lead on. But for mine and Alex's sakes, hopefully she won't be taking in the lead in the next installment of How Long to Beat The Game. Oh, and without further ado, why don't we let you kick us off on the beaten Paula? Because regular listeners will already have heard all of our thoughts about this one.
Yeah, I finished The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, and I guess our regular listeners already know that because we had an entire episode dedicated to that. But still, I just wanted to mark it down here as a completion officially on the, I guess, mainline podcast episode. It was a fun experience. Fact mini game, I have to say, but otherwise a very nice little piece of media that that Sega decided to put out for April Fools.
If you want to hear more, we've got a podcast that's almost as long as the game itself, and you'll find that wherever you found this.
Yeah, I guess it's like half as long as basically.
It's not a million miles off. I mean, it depends how good or how bad you are at that mini game, right? Like, because that is just the sole arbiter of time. Everything else is pretty straightforward.
Shots fired. If you suck, it's only a third as long as the game.
If it took you more than 2 hours, you're not a true gamer.
Yeah, like, do you even game, bro?
Ouch.
Oh dear. Let's move this on. I'm going to jump in here because that way Alex's will break up the segments. So I beat two surprisingly similar games this week. The first of those is South Park: The Stick of Truth. I did not expect it to go the direction it did in the end game. Anyone who's not played this game in the decade it's been out and doesn't want to be spoiled, maybe feel free to skip a couple of minutes ahead. For anyone who's not bothered, already played it, wants a recap from me. The third act of this game involves you shrinking, climbing up Mr. Slave's anus, aborting a nuke, and then killing Princess Kenny.
I fucking love this game.
I mean, it was fantastic. Don't get me wrong; it was incredible. The QTE for the abortion's a bit meh, but it was 2013. We forgive those things.
Did you get the achievement?
Which one?
Do you have achievements? No, you probably didn't have achievements when you were playing, huh?
I got lots of achievements. Which one in particular are you thinking?
Oh, the abortion one is fucking hilarious. I can't remember exactly what it is, but I think it was something like, "Whoa, they went there." Like, I think it was like something, or like it was like, "That was too far, man." Like, it was like that was the achievement or something like that, which was like very funny. Like, it was just such a perfect capstone of like using achievements for humor. I think, you know what? I think when we did an episode on achievements, I'm pretty sure I talked about that one, like alluded to it, but I don't think I actually was specific on it. But that is definitely the moment.
Some of the achievements were very funny. I couldn't remember any, particularly to comment on, but I do remember enjoying them. I wonder if I can find it. Shopaholic. Oh, I forgot about that one. So in the run up to the finale, there's a scene where you have to dress up as a girl to infiltrate the girls and do a mission for them so that they'll join you in your fight to reclaim the Stick of Truth. I never changed my outfit back. And so there's an achievement for defeating Princess Kenny in your girl's makeup outfit. That achievement is called 2 Girls, 1 Stick.
God damn it.
Just why?
That's good.
Yep.
that's an old school throwback too, though. Like, that's early.
I mean, there were some fantastic ones. It was really, really good. Is there one related to that? I'm not seeing that one. I did get one. The achievement name is "Are We Cool?" and you get the achievement for befriending Jesus when your character class is a Jew.
Oh yeah. Cool, man.
Just phenomenal, and I think that speaks to just how on point the humor of the game is. From top to bottom, had me entertained, laughing, not crying, but like just totally invested and involved. And I think the interesting parallel to the other game I've beaten, which is Suits, a business RPG, is that the RPG component is pretty thin. It's a conceit to get you through the story, in essence. And that definitely works better for South Park than it does for Suits. So Suits is like a 3 or 4 dev, like really small indie project. I bought it on sale years and years and years ago, and I've only just now got around to playing it. It was just a little palate cleanser, sort of couple of hours. I had an afternoon free kind of thing. And it was good, but not great. Like, it was okay. You play as a suit, so like a cog in the corporate machine, who ends up being framed for something and then involved in some kind of resistance. The story's pretty thin. It makes some good jokes. There's a lot of babies first, screw capitalism sort of satire kind of thing. What interested me is that there was a lot of personality in the art assets. So it's all hand drawn, and there's a lot of humor that goes into that, things that are drawn in quite silly ways. There's a late game area with computer screens, and some of the computer screens have not porn written on them, just in someone's handwriting. There's a real sort of underdog charm to the way it's put together. That doesn't make the combat any better. The combat's way thinner than South Park, or actually just about any RPG I can think of. You have static progression curves. There's no skill tree. I'd say over half of the skills that your characters have are superfluous. And it is very, very easy to miss additional party characters. So I can see players who aren't sort of poking around and doing other things potentially being really stuck in a hard late game because they've only got the base character. So I got 2 additional characters. I'm assuming there was a third because it looked like there was enough room in the party box in the combat screen for a total of 4 characters, and I only ended up with 3. The game starts quite difficult, and that curve sort of trends downwards as you go through. You're never going to struggle for money to get everything if you're poking around. It was all right. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of little niggly negative things that I can point out. On the whole, I played it through in one sitting, and I had a reasonably good time. There is a sequel. I'm not sure I'm bothered enough to play that. But, you know, if you're looking for a short RPG, you can absolutely do better. Things like Cosmic Star Heron and Jack Move spring immediately to mind. But this is a fun, short RPG time. And I think it's one where, similar to South Park, if you're going in for the story, and the RPG is just a vehicle for that.
Ooh,
really.
Actually, I'm going to be talking with Jack Move in a while. I got it on sale just recently, so it's up on.
Nice.
Coming up soon. I like that demo a lot, and you talked good about it, so I'm like, let's do it.
Oh, I thought it was fantastic. Yeah, I'm looking forward to you playing that. Yeah. I actually recently bought the soundtrack. The soundtrack is a bop.
Sick.
Really, really good. But that does bring me through, I think, both of my completions. I mean, unless there's anything you guys want to sort of tag on top of those. I'm getting shaken heads. Alex, tell us about your completion in that case.
Yeah, I beat Marvel's Midnight Suns. I clocked in, I think, a little bit shorter than some did. I was like 20-something hours, maybe. Yeah, it was like 20 hours, I think. I didn't like do absolutely everything, but I did a lot of stuff in that game. Like I kind of did all the major secrets, at least the big ones around the abbey that you're at. Which so that they had this really cool thing where it's like, you know, obviously the thrust of the game is the missions and stuff, right? Like, you know, that it's by the guys who made XCOM, right? Like the combat is incredible, and I'll just say right now, it's extremely fun. And I thought that I might stick around, but I realized you have that experience where like you finish a game and you could stick around and do more, or you could leave it on that high. And I was like, I'm going to leave it on the high because this game is actually perfectly paced. Where when it was over, I was like, I was just satisfied, you know? Like, I didn't feel like I'm like,
Okay.
oh, I need more now. Like, give me more. I was like, no, that was great. I got what I wanted. That was an interesting story. It was intricate. It played itself out. I got lots of fun time on that. I am happy, right? And so I was like, I'm just going to leave here now. I'm good. I know there is a season pass with like new characters and stuff, and I think they offer some story missions and things. Maybe someday down the road, if it's like cheap enough, I think that would be kind of fun to come in and try, because all the characters are pretty unique. But I was pretty happy where I left it. The story, like, okay, yeah, is it kind of, basic-ish? I suppose. I mean, it's a very true to comics story. Like, I think the best way to describe this is that if you're a fan of like, and like I'm not saying this in like a gatekeeping way, right? Like, I'm not saying like you have to be a true fan of comic books. I just mean that like if you're somebody who actually reads the like individual comics, you kind of are probably going to really, really enjoy this game, because this game truly feels like a like arc of a comic, right? Like, like a Secret Wars, or like, the Midnight Suns, right? Like the whole thing that it's kind of going off of, right? Like it feels like an arc of that. Whereas, like as much as, although I'm a little burnt out actually, I have to say, on the Marvel superhero films, I didn't even bother. I started watching 20 minutes of the new Ant-Man at home and I turned it off. I was like, I just can't do it. It's so boring. It's like, and it's so formulaic, right? And this is, I think, part of the issue where, not to get into a rant on this, but just like, as we know, like, obviously when you put superhero movies onto film, it changes them, right? Like they have to now, they're in a new medium, and so they tend to follow the kind of rules and the formats of that said medium. So it usually feels pretty different from the comic books. This to me felt like the closest experience that I've had in a long time to actually playing something true to the comics, less so than the films. And in like a positive light, it felt to me more like I was like, oh yeah, these feel like characters with a long history here. There's characters from all sorts of different backgrounds kind of gathering together. And yeah, there are some of the more popular characters, but like they really curated a selection of heroes that work well together. And that's what I think is actually most interesting. There's not actually dozens and dozens of heroes that you get to interact with. And even villains wise, they kept it really tight in terms of the villains that you see, which I guess I could probably see some people maybe kind of complaining about that, right? Like I can imagine some saying like, why aren't there more villains, or why not this guy, that guy, though they have some, reveals and hints. I think there's going to be another one of these, and I would happily play another, at least in this world. I hope they do. At least I hope it did well enough, because it really truly is fun and unique, and like just kind of nice to see something so fucking different made from this license that is so formulaic in a lot of ways. And truly the persona elements in it were so well done. Like it's genuinely a super fun social sim. Like and you know what's cool about it? It's a friend simulator. It's not a romance one, which I think is such a unique and interesting thing, where like so often it's about like, okay, who you gonna go bang, right? Like that's just like often what these like things boil down to, right? Where like they turn into these romance things. Where in this one, it's like no, you're developing friendships with the other heroes, and that doesn't mean that they aren't intimate. Like you like form these like pretty interesting, and like they feel like quite genuine, sort of connections between your character and the heroes that are like really, like, honestly, it was pretty interesting. And I was like, I actually like all this like friendship dialogue stuff, and like by the end of it, I was like, oh, my hero is genuinely a part of this team now. Like there's been like a real progression that's happened throughout this, and it happens kind of slowly and like and in a very sort of organic way. And I was like, I don't know, I was just surprised that the game was like able to do that, you know what I mean? Like I didn't really think, I don't know why, because obviously it's such pedigree behind the studio, but it's just like part of me didn't think that I was gonna like come into this and actually like enjoy the social element of it, like I assumed I was going to like the combat, and then that was kind of where I was going to leave it. But I was like, oh no, all the shit around this is like extremely well done and super fucking polished, and just enough. I always felt like my time with the Abbey was just right, like all the stuff that I have to do. I wasn't overloaded. There was only a couple things that I'd have to do each day, and those things had direct impact on the game. And they didn't feel tedious, and it was like, no, you should do this, and it's good. And the loop is just masterfully crafted. Like honestly, the gameplay loop in this is just, it is so efficiently done. And they give you so many, like whenever you're feeling a little like, I don't really want to go play another round, it's like, hey, why don't you go explore the Abbey? Like you don't have to, but like, why don't you go around? You might find some cool shit, and then you do. And like, I know, like we'd mentioned, there are some cosmetic things that you can purchase, but they did do something interesting, and I don't know if this is a full thing, but the cosmetics that you get in the game, there's only really 2 costumes that you could technically buy, right? And they're just costumes. But then everything else, they and you know what's interesting? I actually kind of, first I wasn't sure about this, but you get this thing called like gloss when you beat a mission, and it allows you to like purchase things for the Abbey, purchase things for your room. You can customize it. You can purchase things for your Hellhound. You can purchase stuff like new color schemes for all your costumes, new costumes for all the characters too. And they do a fun, I fucking love this. This is such a small fucking thing, but it was so ingenious. You can get like, everyone has casual costumes for when they're back in the Abbey, right? So they're not wearing their fucking superhero uniforms because that'd be weird. And you have them too, and you can get tons of them. And they give you this little button that says change daily. And it's awesome. So every day you wake up, your character has changed clothes. And I'm like,
yeah.
right? It's such a small immersive thing, and you can do it for all the heroes. So if you buy them new clothing, you can click that on. So every day they're in new clothes. And like, sure, they only have a couple to swap through, but your hero can swap through like I don't even know, like maybe 40 costumes. There's so many. And it's a small little thing, but it really, really is like, it feels pretty kind of special, honestly. And you can even do it, I think, I can't remember for sure, I think you can even do it for the like in battle costumes, and getting it swapped through colors and stuff. So giving you the gloss to purchase things actually made me want to explore it a little more, because I was like, oh, I've got all this money, I wonder what I should go get. Oh, that's kind of nice, I like that one, right? So like, I'll pick that kind of deal instead of just sort of like, because I don't know, I think you could argue that like, why not just like give you all of them for free, right? But then I almost feel like you would just be like, who cares? Do you know what I mean? Like, you would just sort of
There's a
like,
balance to be drawn for sure.
yeah. And since they're not stingy with the stuff, like you get a lot of it. They're like, here you go, like have fun. I never felt like I was like, oh god, I can't get that thing I want. It's like, no, you'll get a bunch. Just go play the game. You know what I mean? Like, it's like,
Yeah, and that probably softens the blow of not being able to make Wolverine your waifu for life.
yeah, exactly, right. Which also, it just wouldn't make any sense. Like
No,
with
no,
these
I know, I'm
characters,
being glib.
yeah, it's like, especially because of who your character is, it just like, it made the world feel more real, because you've literally just met these people. You have these like pseudo, like intimate, partial almost relationships with a few characters that you can develop. But they're never going to make it explicit, which I think is just a really smart move, because I don't know, like, listen, I don't need all my games to let me romance everyone. You know what I mean? It's nice to sometimes just be like,
What?
hey, yeah, right. What? Sometimes
Excuse
it's nice
me?
to just develop friendships with the character, and that was what the thing was really nice. It was like,
Lol.
but anyway, that's my thing with Marvel Midnight Suns. I fucking dug it. I thought the story was actually kind of fun too. It was a neat story that has a pretty cool conclusion, honestly. And it's very, very Lovecraftian, and I dug that. I was like, this is sick. And it's all the witch stuff, like it's all about Salem and the witch trials and everything. And it's Agatha and Wanda, which is all pretty hip right now, which, like, realistically, they would have had no idea before they even started making this that she would become such a popular character in the MCU, right? Like, this has probably been in development for years before it was released. So that's probably just good timing. But and their Wanda is great too in this, like, really good. And so anyway, it's just play this. Like, honestly, if you can get this, even so, I do actually think this game is worth it full price. But if you see it on sale half price, 100% worth it. Like, absolutely worth it. It's extremely fun, beautiful looking. Works sick on the Steam Deck if you got a Steam Deck. So check that out.
Bodes well for the eventual Switch port.
Well, I don't think it's gonna be great on the Switch.
No,
This
me
is
neither.
It's a pretty beautiful game, and there's a lot going on in this thing. I don't know how the hell it's ever. I have a theory that that's just gonna vanish. One
Yeah,
day
probably.
they're just not gonna say anything about it, and it's just not gonna come out. And they're just gonna ride away, and they'll be like, oh, we're working on Marvel Midnight Suns 2. Go buy a Steam Deck.
I mean, that game launched and didn't perform super well on good rigs. It's one of the reasons I held off on it until I've got something a bit beefier. But it does look cool. I think I probably land similar to where you do, in that I think it is nice that they've gone for a darker aesthetic in a line of adaptations that's normally been a bit more family friendly, a little bit more sort of everyone's welcome kind of thing. It's nice to have something a bit grittier in there.
Yeah, exactly. It really has that vibe. It's leaning into the Blade and the vampire witches sort of element of Marvel more. And it does play with that idea of darkness, right? Because the light and dark in this is not necessarily the idea of good and evil. It's like, there are a lot of characters in here where they have touched the darkness in a way, right? Like they are because that's what the Midnight Suns are, right? Like Blade is a freaking half vampire, right? He's a daywalker. Ghost Rider is, and it's the new Ghost Rider. The old Ghost Rider's in it as well. But like it's Robbie Reyes, and so which is actually he's really interesting because he's struggling with the fact that he's like this kind of young sort of like who am I kind of dude. Gives me a little bit Miles Morales vibes in some ways, which but like obviously quite different. But Reyes is like, he's literally has a spirit of hell as his, superpower. And then you've got Nico, who is one of the Runaways, which is like a whole other. I don't actually know a lot about them, but they have it pretty interesting. They're basically like it's like the series about the children of villains, of supervillains, and how they run away from them and have to like basically off their parents. So like they're a bit intense, and so like, she was like raised to be a supervillain basically. And then you have Ileana from Colossus's younger sister from the X-Men, and she was the daughter of, or the queen of Limbo basically. Limbo is like, so like she was like raised by what's his name, Mephisto, like literal trickster devil, so, or like the devil basically. So like the Midnight Suns are like very like, they're like kind of they're anti-heroes really, right? Like they're in that area where they've been kind of evil in their past, and so your character is actually a bit in that area too. Like you're literally created to off your own mother, like that's your whole purpose. You're called the Hunter, right? And so you can play this real, like they give you this encouragement of like, do you go more dark or do you go more light? And like some characters actually respond better to sort of darkness than to lightness. And it's like, to me, it felt like a different take. Because at first when I saw dark and light, I just thought it meant, oh, evil, good. And it's like, no, like you're a good guy. You're a superhero, right? But are you going to like lean into those kind of dark instincts that you have and use them to your advantage? Or are you going to like stray away from that and like go more towards the light? And I just thought that was an interesting, like, slightly more nuanced look at the light versus dark mechanic, right? Instead of just meaning good bad, it's like, no, darkness is a part of everything, right? It's like a little more gray Jedi, like from like it made me think of Kreia a little bit actually, from good old KOTOR 2. So yeah, if Uwe is listening, that one's for you, bud. But yeah. Anyway, that's Marvel Midnight Suns. I super recommend it to folks. Fantastic. Just a fantastic strategy game. Rick, why don't you tell us, what did you retire though?
Yeah, so I've got 3 retirements this week. 2 soft, 1 reasonably hard. So we'll hit the soft retirements first, really quickly. Yeah,
I haven't said that in a long time.
So the first one of the soft retires is East Origin for Vita. I don't know if I wasn't vibing with this because of where I'm at or because of where the game's at. So I want to loop around and come back to this. It's in the older sort of top-down style of East. It's like an 06 game that's been ported to Vita. Plays quite a bit differently to the newer East games, which is what I'm used to. And I don't know. I played maybe 20 minutes of it. I played up to the second save point, and the gameplay was fine, but I just wasn't engaged in the slightest, and I'm not really sure why. So I want to come back to that one. I also want to come back to Nights in the Nightmare for a slightly different reason, and that is that this game is fucking complex. Like, there's a lot of systems. It is unlike anything else I've played before, and probably unlike anything else that exists in the gaming landscape. And by all accounts, once you get your head around its systems, it's a really good game. But I've got quite a lot of games that I'm juggling, and I feel like this is one where I want to loop back around when it can be one of only maybe 2 or 3 games that I've got on the go, and I can give it the attention it needs and deserves. So that one is shelved temporarily for the time being as well. The hard retire, and this will probably lead into your playings, Alex, because you are playing it. That is Moonscars. How have you found Moonscars so far?
I like it. I don't know.
Okay, that's where I started too. I think the further in you go, the more problems and niggles rear their head. Principally among those for me was what felt like a what's the word I'm looking for? I had it in my head as I retired it. I remember thinking, this is how I need to describe it, and it's gone out of my head. It's a confrontational design, and not in a good way. It doesn't feel like it's set up for you to succeed. I'm probably not doing a great job of describing that. The map kind of sucks, so it's hard to see where you are. The upgrade system is reliant on you holding on to all of your upgrade material, but if you're not careful, that can go away because it does the whole Dark Souls blasphemous sort of thing, where if you die, you have to go back and pick it up or you lose it forever. Blasphemous, I felt, was a bit more forgiving in the sense of you can still pick up a lot more and get these upgrades later, even if you lose a couple. This doesn't feel like that because even for the earliest upgrades, you need a lot of Ica to get an upgrade. The parry felt like it only worked half the time, and I think that is largely because the flash that indicates a parryable attack is coming is not for the timing necessarily that you need to hit the parry button to parry the attack.
Yeah, it's the animation, not that flash. I know that fucks me up a little bit too. I forgot about it from the demo.
Yes, yeah, and I find that quite annoying because the art style, while very, very appealing, it's like this low poly rendered down into pixel art sort of style.
Yeah, it's like a PS1 game shoved into pixel art.
The problem with it is it does a really good job of obscuring the minutiae of the animations. And when you've got 4 or 5 enemies swarming around you, which is often the case once you're about an hour into the game, it can be really hard to discern what you're supposed to be blocking, what you're supposed to not. So I found in the early game, I relied very heavily on dodging, which is also a viable strategy, until you come up to certain enemies that are basically impenetrable until and unless you parry them and slow them down. There are also a lot of aerial enemies that you don't have an effective means of attacking. And there's a particular point, I got approaching 2 hours into the game, there's a particular point where you need to get across a chasm, I should say, with breakable floor portions, spikes below, and 4 or 5 of these enemies that cannot be parried because you're not in a position where you stand. They go back to a starting point, which is safely out of the way of anywhere you could if you move too far away from them. I just got a bit sick of it. It felt like a B-Tech Blasphemous, and that's got a sequel coming out. So,
fuck, I have a feeling I'm gonna retire it then. Why did I?
Yeah, well, I hope you enjoy it more than I did, Alex. You know, we don't always fall exactly on the same line with these things, and it might be that, you know, with your DKC background, you've got maybe more of a tolerance. I think you're a bit more of a glutton for punishment generally than I am, anyway. But for me,
fair, with these kind of games, I usually am.
It wasn't doing it for me. I've got quite a few like actual Metroidvanias that have gotten a better reception that I want to go to, and I think Blasphemous is the good contrast point. I think it's a helpful contrast point because that game was much more visually striking, which I think is one of Moonscars' big selling points. Probably had a slightly worse story. The one thing that kept me going as long as I did is that I was somewhat intrigued by the story concept of Moonscars. I think that's its strongest element. But Blasphemous controls a lot nicer, has a better map system, and even in its oppressive is the word I was looking for. It's oppressively designed. Even in its oppression, Blasphemous, I still felt the drive to push forward and see what was coming up next. I just wasn't feeling that with Moonscars, unfortunately. And I think this is probably a conversation for another time, but one of the downsides of the Game Pass model is there is no sunk cost to it. So that's a double-edged sword, right? Because you can try something with no investment, but also it's much easier to say, easy come, easy go, and drop something that you might otherwise try a bit more with.
Yeah, I think I might end up sticking with it longer simply because I just bought it on Steam because it was on super sale, and I was like, I want to play it on my Steam Deck. So I might actually stick with it longer because I can just pick it up and put it down more.
We've got a test subject.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with it. Because I remember really enjoying you know what, I think it might click with me more than it did with you because
maybe
I got slight Hollow Knight-ish vibes from it. And like obviously Hollow Knight is probably much better because it's Hollow Knight, but I think I do have a higher tolerance for those kind of games than you might, which is totally fair. Like not to give it any excuses, but yeah, I think I probably will have a slightly higher tolerance.
Stay tuned and find out, I guess.
Yeah, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, let's move formally into the playing bit. Tell us how you found it so far. I mean, how much have you actually played of it?
God, not that much because I just popped it on my Steam Deck. So like, I think I don't even think I'm past the part where I stopped in the demo. Like I think I'm still around there. Like I'm probably only like 30-40 minutes into the game at this point. Like I haven't done much. I just started it so I could be like, I have begun it. But then I've had a pretty busy freaking week, so I hadn't really done a ton of I haven't done like a ton of sit down gaming. I've done a ton of gaming on my commute, and I've been what I'm doing right now is like it's kind of fun for me. I've decided it's like, you know what I'm going to do with my commute? I'm going to beat one game on my Switch Lite, and then I'm going to swap to my Steam Deck. I'll beat one game there, and then I'll switch back to my Steam to my Switch Lite, and I'll play Breath of the Wild or whatever, the Tears of the whatever the fuck when it comes out next month. And so I'm just like swapping through, and it's so far it's fun. But I gotta say, so just to give it a sense here, I'm playing Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, which is fucking great. Like it is so excellent. I won't name he who shall not be named, but God, does it blow that fucking game out of the water? Fire Emblem. It's just blows it out of the water. So fucking good. It's just
say it.
It's straight tactics, no guff. It's just straight tactics. It's Wargroove, right? But the original. It's what Wargroove was, based off, right? The remake is seemingly great. I'm not even missing the pixel art because the new art is actually gorgeous and it looks hand drawn for the folks, and they do this like slight animation to them, and it's really fun, and everyone looks kind of toyetic, which is really cute. And I mean, like honestly, the concept of this game is fucking weird because it's like everybody's just like they just fight each other, and it's like a game to them, but you're killing everybody. So you're just like, this is a little odd, but it's fun, which is probably why this game was delayed. Like I have to say, while playing it, I'm like, oh no, I get it. Because like this makes a full game out of War, and I'm like, no, I fully understand why you decided to push this off. This is the one time where I'm like, was the right call.
I mean, to be fair, I think they would have gotten away with it, but I totally, I'm in agreement. I think it would have been tone deaf, and I think everyone's sympathetic to the reasons that held off the way
exactly it did. Right, exactly. So yeah, it's anyway, but this all to say that I picked up my Switch Lite for the first time when I was on the bus. It's like my Steam Deck, and I was like, what is this, a game for ants? Like it's just so small. Like it feels so freaking tiny compared to the Steam Deck. Like it really feels like a toy at this point. Like it's so weird, right? Like I never really noticed it. And like obviously like look, I think the Switch Lite is like a beauty. Like it is a beautiful little thingy, like it's just wonderful. But yeah, I kind of missed the big just like beautiful screen that I got with the Steam Deck. But you know, it's to each his own, right? But I would say that like it kind of made me want to go like, man, I should just burn my copy of Zelda when I get it and play it on my freaking Steam Deck, because I'm like, it's so much prettier than this fucking thing.
Do you know what? Buy it and then emulate it through
Because
using.
I think
and,
I have already bought
feel
it, so
free.
I'm like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, I wouldn't even really feel guilty. I'm like, oh, I did buy the
Fuck it.
game, so it's like I bought it full price, so I mean, fuck it.
Everyone's a winner. You get to play it at a reasonable frame rate. Nintendo get your money.
And I get to play it on a nice, big, great thing. It's like, I honestly think I might, because at this point, it's like, well, shit, I don't know if I want to play it on the Switch. Because it's probably gonna, like, I know they're wizards and whatnot, but for fuck's sake. It's not
Even in the
gonna look as
previews,
good.
people have mentioned performance as a potential road bump on Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah,
And
like,
I don't think that should be surprising to anybody, right? But
no, this is an old drum, right, that we've beaten many times, because it's just the reality now. Where like I think they've been pushing it with this console. Like I'm like,
yeah,
nothing, no idea about what's coming now. Okay, fine, cool. But anyway, all that to say, Advanced Warriors 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, and this is one of those ones where like they do the very wise thing, right? Of where it's so stylized that you don't know, like I can't notice anything, because it's stylized. Graphically, it's also very low demand, right? It's a remake of a Game Boy Advance
the
game,
Game Boy Advance games, yeah,
right?
for sure.
So it should look incredible, and it does. I'm basically done the first one. I only have like 2-3 missions left in the first game now. So I'm almost done. It flies by pretty quick. Like, it's not particularly challenging, I would say. Like, I wouldn't call Advance Wars like hardcore tactics games. Like, to me, this is more of like more intro level. Now, that being said, you will get your ass handed to you if you don't play strategically. Like, they really, 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 really emphasize making strategic choices in this, because otherwise you will just get steamrolled entirely. Because the AI is not crazy smart, but it is smart enough. And I would not recommend playing on, like, they have like a casual mode. Like, I don't know. If you're buying this for your kid, put them on that, right? Because then that'll be a fun time. They won't be super frustrated. But like, straight up, if you have played any games, you can handle the classic mode. You'll be okay, right? You might lose
This
once
is
or
the
twice, but you'll be
gatekeeping
fine.
hour for Alex this week. My God.
No, it's just I don't want you to have like a shite experience, because like I feel like if you were to come in and go on the casual because you're worried about, because I know there are some who like, you want to play a game, right, and you don't want to be like overly challenged by it, because like that's not what you're here for, right? So like I understand that that sort of mindset. Like I'm not ashamed. I'll play easy mode sometime. I haven't played in a while, but like there are some games where it's like, yeah, whatever. If something's too tough, I'll just bump it down. But this is one of those ones where I'm like, I actually do think you might put yourself at a slight disservice if you try that casual mode before you try the classic one, just because this is a game of strategy and it's not overly punishing. Like, this is not a game that's trying to like punish your every move. It's just, it does want you to learn how to be a bit more strategic with its units. And so those slight defeats, and like the missions aren't long. It's like if you lose something, you really haven't like sunk a ton of time into this. Like at most, I think my like longest mission might have been like maybe like 40 minutes, maybe even less than that. Probably more around the 30 mark. Like they're really not that long. So I would just personally recommend that like try the classic mode first, and you'll have a good time. Also, it's really fun because all the units make sense. Like, anti-aircraft is good against, what do you think it's good against?
Infantry.
Exactly. Yeah, fucking planes, right? Like, I mean, that's the whole point. It's like, yeah, and planes, if you're a fighter jet, you can't strike things on the ground because you're a fighter jet, right? Like, it's like, that's what you can't hit. Tanks can blast infantry away, but if infantry have rocket launchers, they can hurt your tank. It's like everything just makes sense. It's all very clear.
How am I fitting this into a triangle?
Exactly. There's no fucking triangle in this goddamn game. You don't need a goddamn triangle to make a game effective.
Paula is seething in the corner.
I'm just here, like, trying to suit the triangle, like, don't listen to them. They don't know what they're talking about.
Oh dear.
But no, like, listen, obviously those are different. It's different different enjoyments, right? Like it's that's all there is. And it's Intelligent Systems who made this too, right? So like, they're also make Fire Emblem, so it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's like it's similar. It's like two sides of a coin, right? It's just like this side of the coin I am enjoying quite a bit right now. And it makes me very, very, very hopeful that we're going to see more Advance Wars coming out of this, because it's a really, man, like maybe make a reboot of those DS games too. Because I'm like, yeah, just bring me these little reboots. Like bring this game into the modern era for us, because it's pretty fun. And I know that there was the GameCube ones as well, and I don't know. I feel like those ones were a little more polarizing, but from what I hear, it's the Battalion Wars.
Battalion Wars. Yeah, I know the one you said. I think there's a Wii one as well.
Yeah, there is. There's two, I think. Yeah.
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 One on each.
I know it's like a little out of Nintendo's wheelhouse because it's like war stuff, and I know they didn't always love that, but like, and you mean you could see even with the having to delay it, they're probably like a little like, we don't do fucking war shit.
If ever there were a time not to green like that sort of game, it's probably now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But like when war is always happening, unfortunately, it's the Fallout thing.
Yeah.
Just a sad reality, right? But they do make it like it honestly, it doesn't feel like real war. It feels like obviously, but it feels like you're playing with kids' toys. Like you're playing pretend war. Like that's what it feels like. It's like playing war games, right? It's like that's maybe also why I like it so much. It's also probably why I enjoy playing like my hobbyist games so much, because I'm like, this is all these are. Like the hobbyist games are just physical turn-based strategy games. That's all it is, right? Like it's a little definition of them. And so this one actually feels the most similar to those to me, because again, it just has like a very, very like simple but complex in terms of its rules, and every scenario is different. So they all have very different requirements for you, and I really dig that. So anyway, that's Advance Wars. Went to Reboot, good stuff. I was playing more Vampire Survivors, still fun. I played more Dorf Romantic 2, actually. That game is like always slightly parked in my retirement pile, but then comes out once in a while when I'm high. Because it's such a perfect game to play if you're just a little under the influence. Because you just sit there and go, oh, pretty trees. Boop, go there. Ooh.
It does look like a Zen game.
Ooh, it's super zen, super zen. It's also great to play with you have something on, because the music's a bit repetitive in it, especially if you're playing over a long session. So I just turn the music like basically off, and I'm just like yee on my Steam Deck having a good time. So good shit. And of course, I'm playing more Resident Evil 4 Remake. Oh, it's so good! I'm really happy that I'm taking my time with this game. I'm in the castle now. Which means nothing to you all, but it means a lot to those who've played it. And god damn, the castle is great. They kind of changed the little dude though. There's like this little like inbred like Habsburg motherfucker who is just like
Salvador or whatever his name is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Salazar. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that is Salazar, right? Yeah, I think it's Salazar. Yeah. Anyway,
I read a review in Edge, so I've seen a little picture of him, and he does look a bit different.
He does, yeah. He's less campy in this one. To be honest, he makes more sense in this one. Like everything's like a little more like everything makes a bit more sense in this remake. Like it feels more like you're like,
fine.
Okay, I guess this is like a little more realistic, as realistic as Resident Evil can be. But I'm like, but also I want my little inbred aristocrat dancing around going, hello, Leon. You know, like he's just his little thing where he's like, and he goes, no. And he's just so like kind of stupid. But in this one, he's more like, I don't know. He's more Baron Harkonnen than he is little Habsburg boy. So you know, he's more like he's more slimy aristocrat than like whiny aristocrat. That's the title for this. But yeah, I just like it's just so good. It's so good. It's so good. Like it is hard to describe how fucking fun this game is. And I just like everyone should play this. Everyone should play this. Even if you don't like scary games, you need to play this game. Like it is so much fun, and it will get you completely in love with Resident Evil as Resident Evil 4 did before. It truly is like just a phenomenal experience. And I've been enjoying taking my time with it. I've like kind of purposely have not been rushing through the game because I want to sort of, you know how like sometimes it's like I want this game to play over a long period of time so that I can remember it, you know? Like I don't want to just blast through the whole thing and then be just kind of done with it. And it's just like it's like, you know, I look back years later and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember. I guess I played that game once. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to draw
And
this
when you're
one
having
out.
such a good time, like you just don't want to hit the end. 13 Sentinels was like that for me. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's like part of me wants to just like sit down and like barrel through it, but then I'm like, no, just play a little bit each week, right? Like sit down, play a couple chapters each week, and then like that way it'll like expand out, right? And so that's what I've been doing with it.
I
Anyway,
get
that's
that.
me. Who's gonna? I don't know. Paula, you want to go ahead?
Because I'll need a little break between these and
Talk about
taking
UI.
over the topic of the week. So first of all, I haven't been playing much because I've been sick. So and I've been technically playing the real life counterpart to Art Academy. So right now I'm either writing in bed or drawing. So that has been my week. I have been playing a little bit of two games. I'm still playing Chaos Head Noah. I'm still playing Steins. I'm still playing Café Enchanté. And why is not Breath of the Wild here? Well, I'm still playing Breath of the Wild in preparation for Tears of a Kingdom, which, by the way, by the time you're listening to this podcast, which is gonna be probably like on Sunday next week, there's gonna be like 5 days left until the release date. Right now it's 12 days left.
But who's counting?
But anyway, who is counting here? Hey, I'm counting here. And so I've been playing Breath of the Wild partially because I wanted to get some screenshots, but then I remember I had one screenshot especially for the topic of this week, and the other things that I've been playing a lot of are Pokemon Scarlet because I've been I've been farming the raids that were on last week. So for those who did not know, Blissey was up like last week on the Terra raid battles. And what's the meaning of this? So why is that important? The thing is that each Terra raid battle that you do gives you Terra crystals, and you can use those Terra crystals to change the Terra type of your Pokemon. So in this case, Blissey will give you not only a shit ton of the Terra charts of the Terra type Blissey is, Blissey will give you a collection of Terra charts, like 5 of each. Like I think Blissey usually gives you like 4 kinds of Terra crystals, even though it only has 1 Terra type. But anyway, or if you're really, really lucky, you can get like 5 of each of every type or almost every type, which is a lot because you need, if you remember correctly from my rant of last week, you need like 50 Terra charts to change your Pokemon's Terra type. So that was very, very useful. And I was very, very happy to farm the hell out of those Terra crystals, especially because even though I bitch about some jackass using a Blissey in a Dita raid and making it more difficult for everyone else in the room to pretty much do the raid, these Blissey's aren't like EV trained, are only level 75, and since they aren't EV trained, you can just hit them with a physical attack and they'll go down. Unlike whatever that other Blissey that the Dito copied was eating. But anyway. That is to say, I have my team ready for Pokemon Scarlet. And the team that I train for Pokemon Scarlet competitive is actually pretty decent. It holds up like pretty well. Especially because people don't know what the fuck Ampharos is doing in that team, since it is a Pokemon that is not very used competitively. And the other Pokemon that is kind of like a trump card is the Arcanine that I named also like last week, because it is a special Arcanine instead of a physical Arcanine, and the ground type just makes it so much better. So anytime I just have like one Pokemon left and that is Arcanine, and the other person has one Pokemon left and is weak to ground, well, that Pokemon is out. So enough of my ramblings on Pokemon Scarlet. Oh, and just before I end my ramblings, there's an Inteleon raid going on this week, and I think next week, I think the Crashing Wake and Iron Leaves or Walking Wave and Iron Leaves draw rates are coming back. So for anyone who didn't grab their Paradox Pokemon, their Paradox Suicune and Paradox Spirition the last time, they can grab one this time. You can only catch one per account, so but you can do all the rates you want for the rewards, and the rewards are pretty good. Now, enough of Pokemon Scarlet. I'm also been playing Fire Emblem Engage. I think I'm on chapter 17 or 18. And I've been exploring a side of the game that I haven't even realized it existed. So there's like a tower thingy, like at the south of Solem, where you can kind of like do some training battles to get rewards that you can use towards enhancing your emblem rings and a little bit of experience, which, by the way, I just use them for the emblem rings because the experience they give is shit, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. And the other thing that you can do is play some kind of multiplayer thing, which I'm gonna try out after this recording, because a friend of mine is also playing Fire Emblem Engage, and they send me a code, and it seems that each player gets to play 2 turns towards a mission using the army. So they already played their 2 turns, and I have to play 2 turns, and then they play 2 turns, and so forth, and so on and so forth. I'm gonna have more information about this after the recording, sadly. But it is interesting that there is some kind of multiplayer in this game. There is one other like mode that is also multiplayer, but I didn't like look into it like too much. But it is there in case people want to go investigate. Again, it is on the Solem map on the far south of the map, and you can get yourself some rewards to improve those emblem rings and make your army more broken than it really has any right to be. And I have to say, like, even though I'm playing on a higher difficulty, I haven't had to grind really. Like, I haven't thought the like, I know I can get through the battle without grinding if I play my cards right. The thing is, how the fuck do I play my cards right on some battles? Especially, I think in the tower, you don't lose your units if they fall into battle because you play like the 3 consecutive stages or 3 consecutive maps without swapping your units or swapping their inventory. So you have to plan around very carefully. And those maps have a lot of units, like a stupid amount of units. So you have to really try to plan. Like, I know the usual weapons don't have weapon durability anymore, but the items are like the vulneraries, the elixirs, and the staves have durability. So you have to plan around that. You do get back your items, like just like all the items you use on the tower thingy are they're given back to you once you finish the 3 stages or like quit in the middle. So you don't have to worry about, okay, maybe I'm wasting these items that I might have to use during the story bits. Because they're like very forgiving in that, like, hey, you use it for training to get more items. Here is the stuff you use. Like, your units don't die during that training mode, and they don't their weapons don't degrade during the training mode. Anyways, and I think that's all I'll be playing. I've been playing, besides a little bit of Breath of the Wild, because of course Tears of the Kingdom, and I want to. You know what? There's information saying that Koroks are coming back in Tears of the Kingdom. I think it's from the previews or something like that. So I am not gonna collect as many Koroks as I was initially planning to collect.
That's
I'm
a
just
lie, and
gonna-
everybody knows that.
I'll probably just finish the Divine Beast to like the 120 shrines, which I think I'm like 40 shrines in. Don't quote me on that. And I'm gonna collect all the memories for the extra scene at the end. So that's what I'm gonna do, and that's the game plan. Hopefully I have more time this week, which, by the way, I have a free week. And also Paula is the birthday girl next week, so I'll be 1 year older.
Happy birthday! So I guess by the time you're listening to this, Paula's birthday's happened.
Woo!
So yeah, that's about it from my playings. Rick, take it away, please.
Sure thing. So, before I get into my actual games, in the spirit of Alex cheating and including books and gaming adjacent shit, I've started a gaming adjacent book, namely Myst, the Book of Atrus. So for anyone who wasn't aware, when Myst was like a big thing back in the 90s, Rand and Robin Miller, the brothers who are behind that game, teamed up with an author to write 3 books detailing the backstories and stuff around some of the worlds and characters of Myst. So this first one is specifically about the early life of Atrus, who is like the core character besides the play character in the original Myst game. And it's well written so far. I've really, really enjoyed it. I think they're a bit harder to track down now than when I originally bought this quite a few years ago. You can buy them collectively as a trilogy called the Myst Reader, but I've got the individual paperback copies. And it goes at a fair clip. It's very well written. And I think even if you're not a fan of the series, it's the kind of thing that you could pick up and understand and get into. It's written without too much reference to the games themselves, although there are a lot of terms and characters that you would absolutely recognize if you've engaged with that world at all. So that's a nice non-gaming thing that I'm doing. Onto the games themselves. So it's a lot more of the same for the most part. There's a couple of new bits, but mostly cracking on with things I was already playing. So I've played a fair bit more of FF7 Remake. I'm on chapter 8, and I've started to hit the point where things are really beginning to diverge from the original game. There's a Turk that turns up much earlier in a scene that he wasn't in the original. And without spoiling anything, there are some other things happening in that game that are new to the remake. And I've got an inkling as to where they're going with this. I'm not sure, but if they are going where I think they're going, I'm very on board with the direction that they've taken with this remake in terms of the story and what they're doing with it. You're muted, Alex.
I was about to say,
That's
if you do
amusing.
care about spoilers, close your ears for a second, but it definitely has the... Not you, I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but I have a feeling... oh, never mind, you're good.
You done?
Yeah, I was going to spoil something for you, Rick.
Oh, that's all right then.
Because
That's
I
fine.
think I know what character you're talking about, but I was just going to say he has a very specific musical cue, that's for sure.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there's some other bits going on. I think it's one that would be interesting to do a spoiler cast on. Because you've played this already, haven't you, Alex?
Oh, yeah, I loved it. Loved it. It was great.
And Paula, I want to say probably have not played it. No. Maybe one we can pick back up another time. But I'm really, really enjoying this. I like what they've done with the combat. I wasn't sure I was going to, but I have actually been very on board with the sort of real-time turn-based hybrid thing that they've come up with. I think it's a lot more engaging. It definitely allows me a lot more experimentation, and it fixes, to be fair, the primary problem I had with the original FF7, which is that its turn-based system was so damn slow.
Boring as fuck.
That is absolutely not something you can accuse the new game of.
No.
I am looking forward to playing Intergrade and whatever the sequel looks like on more modern hardware, because you can absolutely tell that as beautiful as the first chapter of the remake is, it's very much held back by the PlayStation 4. There's textures that do not come in looking good. There's all this sort of staple climb through this narrow path that's going to take you long enough for us to load the next area sort of things. So lots that could potentially be fixed. But the core experience is great. Like, I'm sitting on a 9 out of 10 in terms of personal rating at the moment. And I'm finding that now I'm able to make a bit more time to actually make a bit more headway in it. I'm making more progress than I have for the past few months.
I think 9 out of 10 was what I ended up giving it, actually, when I finished it. I really liked that game. It was one of my favorite.
Yeah,
so far.
I think if it was a little bit less railroady and maybe a little bit less hand-holding, that would probably tip it over into the 10, but it's like a 9 bordering on a 9.5. Like, it is really very solid. I've played a lot more of GrimGrimoire OnceMore on the Switch. That game is broken up into, I believe, 25 levels in terms of the main campaign. I am on level 14. And it's interesting because it's very unlike most of Vanillaware's output, but it's very, very similar to their most recent game, 13 Sentinels, in that there's a clear distinction between the story segments and the strategy combat segments. I think what this game probably misses the most, that 13 Sentinels did just include as standard, is just being able to pause the action at any time to survey the map and decide what you're going to do next. There's ways of doing it in this version, but it's a little bit clunky. And rather than being on a flat XY horizontal plane, it's more like flat on a vertical plane, like you are viewing a tower map from the side on. You have a lot more autonomy over which elements you're bringing in. It hews closer to sort of RTS staples, things like gathering energy and resources, having set spawn points for characters, a fog of war, which 13 Sentinels just doesn't have. It is a console RTS from 2006 or 2007 or whenever it was that it came out. So I think those limitations are perfectly understandable. In spite of that, it plays very well. You've got buttons for everything you need to do. Everything's really clearly laid out. At all times, you have access to a page equivalent to like a move guide you'd see in a fighting game, listing all the enemies, what they're weak to, what they're strong to, what their base stats are, showing you which types of runes are strong and weak against. It's a combat diamond, not a combat triangle in this instance, Alex.
More interesting.
They've added a whole extra vertex to it, and let me tell you, woo!
Strategies out the wazoo on this one.
Yeah. I'm really, really enjoying it. If anything, I'm probably liking the story a little bit more. The combat's good. There's, optional missions within that. There's ways of making it easier and harder. There's also a load of like trial combat stages, which I haven't touched really, and I'm not sure if I will. But the core game's keeping me engaged. There's a really cool story here. Again, without spoiling anything. Surprises around every turn, new information to glean, all animated in Vanillaware's trademark gorgeous hand-painted style. And they've clearly gone and redone all of the textures and what have you, or pulled the main assets. I know when they ported Muramasa to the Vita, they had high-res assets that they had to scale down for the Wii, so they already had the assets to pull. I don't know if they've done that this time, or they just had the extra work done to get those assets to where they need to be. But it looks phenomenal. It looks every bit a modern title. So I'm having a lot of fun with this. I did go in with a degree of trepidation and concern, because RTSs aren't really my jam outside of 13 Sentinels and the Final Fantasy 12 spin-off on DS, Revenant Wings. I've never really gotten into RTS games. Obviously, we had the Age of Empires experiment, and it didn't really grab my attention. But this one's working for me. It's very small scale, and I think what bothered me about Age of Empires is that they're big campaigns with a massive map to keep track of. It's a very small combat area, maybe 3 screens by 2 screens in terms of overall area most of the time, which makes it very manageable even when you're having to navigate it with an analog stick. And I think that works in the game's favor as well. So
Age of Empires feels like a
very
fever
much on
dream.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just saying Age of Empires feels like a fever dream. Like I got so goddamn into that game and then it's just gone. Like if I tried playing it now, I'd suck horribly.
Yeah, these games be like that.
But man, got like pretty good at it, and then it's just you just like kind of go like bye.
Yeah, I mean, you have to adapt or die with those games. You have to keep on top of them, and that brings me to one that's not on the docket but should be, because I've played a lot more Rocket League in this past week, principally because they fixed whatever they'd done to fuck up controller support. I had a day off in the week, and I was doing some other stuff at my computer, and I thought, you know what? Let's see if Psyonix have sorted it. And lo and behold, they had. In the intervening time, they'd gotten through like another half of this season's season pass. So I had a lot of seasonal content to catch up on, which I mostly have. The game continues to be fantastic and continues to be my particular vice of choice from a gaming perspective. So played another 4 or 5 hours of that this week. Haven't played much more of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, but girlfriend and I both got day off tomorrow. We've both had very busy past couple of months, so we've decided that tomorrow's getting booked out for pajamas. And among other things, I expect we'll probably play some more Marvel tomorrow. Might even be that we finish it, because it doesn't seem massively long, and we're already maybe 40% of the way through. So I imagine if we don't finish it, we get pretty close. Opinion hasn't changed because I haven't played much more of it. I think it's a great, if a little bit dated, multiplayer sort of hack and slashy sort of combat-y thing without the loot. I will say the enhancement options from a campaign perspective feel a little bit limited. I do wonder if that is because there's an expectation that you'll take those characters then into the optional gauntlets, side content, and build them further within that. I don't think that's going to be our speed, but I do think it's interesting if that's the way that they've skewed it. Probably more on that in the coming week and weeks. I've played a lot more of Radiant Historia, and I am very much vibing with this game. It's interesting from a comparator to Chrono Trigger perspective, because when this game came out on DS, it was talked about, for a few reasons, time travel being principal among them, as the Chrono Trigger of its generation. And I probably wouldn't dispute that yet, but there are a lot of differences. I think the biggest one as an interest point is the way that it handles time travel. So with Chrono Trigger, obviously you travel to discrete ages, and those ages to a certain extent are static moments in time that your whole party goes to and comes from. The way that time travel in Radiant Historia works, the main character, Stock, is the only one who travels, and he travels back and forth along multiple timelines, as it were. So anything that happens to your character remains happening to your character, so your level progression is static. And it seems as a conceit to the gameplay that the progression of your party is static as well. So say you level your party characters from level 6 to level 8, but then go back to the point in time where originally they were level 6, they will be then level 8 for you to be able to progress. So there's some smart, albeit immersion breaking slightly, concessions to the fact that this is a video game you want people to play. The story is fascinating. I'm not normally very good at holding on to place names and character motivations and things like that in a high fantasy setting where you've got, Mithriels and Temorgans and all of that shit. The world of Radiant Historia, the conflict between Alistel and Granorg, and the sand plague that is devastating that world has really, really sunk its claws in. The character motivations are clear, well communicated. The writing is relatively dry, but very, very engaging. And the game hasn't pulled punches. There's been some tough moments and choices already. I'm only maybe 3 or 4 hours in. The combat definitely has some room to grow, but I have liked it a lot. For anyone who's not familiar, it's a 3x3 grid system. Most of your attacks have some means of moving the enemies around that 3x3 grid, both because if you're in the front row versus the back row, as is conventional in this kind of game, you deal and receive more or less damage. But also because if you can stack enemies on the same tile, when you attack an enemy at that space, you hit everyone at that space. So you can build up a combo. It allows you to deal more damage in one fell swoop. It also has an implication as to how quickly you're accruing experience points. And I think that's a really clever inversion. It's a smart way of making the combat feel unique and giving it an added component, because it's not like a conventional Final Fantasy thing where there's your 4 guys and their 3 guys and you're just taking it in turns to throw an attack out. You do really have to think, and you have it's worth saying you have a function similar to what you'd have in like a Star Renegades or a Bravely Default, where you can pass on turns and move characters around to allow you to combo those things through. So this part I probably should have explained earlier because I'm not doing the best job of this here. But if you have a string of characters, so let's say your characters are moving one after another, you queue all those actions up, they all happen in one fell swoop. So you don't put one command in and then your character acts, and then put the next character in and then they act. You put all 3 commands in and they happen one after another. And you have the option of switching your characters around in the turn order, which is shown on the top screen. It makes them vulnerable to attack if there's enemy actions happening between that switch around and their next action. But it also lets you chain more of those combos together, build up your combo score, be more effective in combat. It means you're not focused on raw damage output. You're also focused on where you're moving your enemies around that grid, whether you're making yourself vulnerable and risking that vulnerability to be able to make a better combo happen. It also, I think, makes the game a little bit more challenging because your enemy gets to move in concert as well. So if they have 5 or 6 goes, you're not really on a grid in the same way, so they can't move you around, at least not yet. But it makes the way they move different to conventional RPGs as well. And I've had to be really, really deliberate and intentional about even, grunt combat, which isn't the norm for this kind of RPG in the early game. And I found that quite refreshing as well. The pixel art's great. I have the 3DS remake, but I am still playing this on the original DS because I wanted to experience it in that form. I'm very, very on board with this so far. I can't think of anything that I'm not liking or not enjoying about the game so far. It's flawless so far. What else am I playing? Oh, also on the Nintendo DS, I am doing a replay of Aliens Infestation. Having recommended that to Alex a couple of weeks ago, I got the itch and I decided to delete my save because there's only one save per cartridge and start again. It's interesting coming back to this. For anyone who remembers me briefly talking about the Mummy demastered, the Way Forward tie-in Metroidvania that they made to go with that film, I commented at the time that it felt like it was probably made in the Aliens Infestation engine or stole a lot of that game's homework. And coming back, I absolutely have that feeling solidified. It controls very similarly. You have the same slow, deliberate movement. It's a similar sort of set of weapons for you to use. I think what makes this unique to that is the combat encounters are fewer and more impactful. So in the Mummy Demastered, you are fighting, your regular cornucopia of regular enemies, grunts, mummies, zombies, fodder, lots and lots of fodder. In Infestation, there's a couple of androids you face early on, and then it's aliens and facehuggers. And you don't fight loads of them, but the ones you do fight, you have to do a lot of damage, and they can do a lot of damage back to you. Pixel art's fantastic, looks wonderful. If anything, I wouldn't mind a third screen, because a lot of the reloading and switching between grenades and stuff like that is done on the touch screen, which also doubles as your map screen, and you can't have one open to do the other actions. I also actually think that in some ways works to the game's strength, because it increases the tension, and if you want to reload, that means you're losing your map access temporarily, and you're losing your proximity sensor. There's a particular term for it in the Aliens franchise. I should say, with all of this, never seen Alien or Aliens or any of the extended works. I know that is a crime. That is something I plan to address eventually. As yet, have not. So this game absolutely stands up on its own merits. There's no sort of franchise love in this. Is this one you think you'll get to anytime soon, Alex?
Not anytime soon, but yes, I will get to at some point.
Eventually.
Yeah,
That's
it's more just like when I decide to do some DS gaming. Just because so many games to play right now.
Yeah, I did think when you said I'm doing Steam Deck, then I'm doing Switch, I'm doing Steam Deck, then I'm doing Switch, I was like, there's some handhelds that aren't getting the love they deserve here in this.
Yeah, but I'm not taking my DS on the bus, you know? I mean, that's where I draw the line. Well, it's
That's
more
fair
just,
enough.
yeah, I just don't, like, honestly, it's just because, I don't know, it's just clunkier.
Is it?
Yeah.
If anything,
to
it's
me, it
nicer.
feels
You
good.
close that screen and then you open it straight back up and you're right where you left off.
Yeah, but that's the same thing with the Switch and the Steam Deck. You just,
Yeah, but you have to press a button and then you have to press 3 more buttons.
I mean, I guess, but not really.
I'm not that
Okay,
committed
because
to this
it's on
argument,
your
but we're
pocket.
here now. What are you saying, Paula? Sorry?
But your DS can fit on your pocket.
Yeah. So
The DS is
Switch
much more
Lite-
pocketable. That is true.
Not much more than the Switch Lite, actually. The 3DS is not. It's not more.
The regular DS Lite absolutely is.
Oh yeah, but my DS Lite is that fucking thing cuts my fucking hands. I hate the DS Lite.
Oh, fair enough. I want to shout out my DS Lite's battery, actually. I've had this bad boy since like 2008. And let me tell you, it still holds a good charge. Like, I had it on sleep mode for 4 days and came back to it, and it was still green. And I was like, oh,
Nice. Yeah, they did a good job.
Yeah.
With those ones there, in terms of battery life. I just wish it didn't slice my hands open.
some of it might be personal care as well, I should say, because I've bought a second-hand one, and that battery doesn't last more than an hour. So I think there's a swings and roundabouts sort of thing to it.
Yeah, more than likely.
Yeah,
Anyway, I will play eventually. It's just my DS is a thing I like to play at home. You know what I mean? I just like to like sit with it, just mostly because like honestly, do you know what a part of it is? It's just that the specialized charger makes it so that I don't like to bring it with me, because like if I have
get
my
that.
Switch, a Lite, or my Steam Deck, they both have USB-C. So it's like I literally have these Chromebooks there, and they gave me this charger. So like if I go to work and I need to, I just pop it in, it charges.
albeit the counterpoint being that you probably aren't going to need to charge a DS up like you're going to need to charge a Steam Deck or a Switch up, because they are way more power hungry.
Yeah, I forget sometimes. You know what I mean?
Mo-
There are days where I'm not on top of my shit, man. 'Cause I have so much less.
Who are you, and what have you done with Alex? I beg your pardon.
Yeah, I know. I'm usually on top. I'm on top of most of my shit. Just not always.
Exactly.
Not always my gaming shit, because it's just the last thing I think about. I just throw it in my book bag.
Nobody's perfect.
Exactly.
And the last game has seen me getting my Taiko drum back out, because I'm currently playing Taiko no Tatsujin Rhythm Adventure 1. Now, this is originally a 3DS Taiko no Tatsujin RPG that got ported to the Switch as a double pack with another 3DS Taiko RPG. An RPG in the loosest possible sense. Like, you're navigating an overworld and seeing a really goofy time travel story. But instead of having RPG battles, when you have an enemy encounter, a random song from the game setlist kicks up and you play it to deal damage to the enemy. It's just a great excuse to play Taiko, and I'm so here for it. It was on sale super cheap. Like, I got both Rhythm Adventures for, I want to say £9 total. It was like £8.99. And I had a load of eShop points, so £0 and 0 pence effectively. The Taiko drumming is as good as ever. the RPG is thinner even than the South Park game, even than suits like the indie RPG game. You are literally just walking to next place, seeing cutscene, and there are battles happening in and around that. But that's okay, because again, this is a vehicle RPG. The RPG is only there to make you experience the story. They're not trying in a way that something like Radiant Historia is to be innovative with the mechanics. And that's fine. And it's just the excuse I wanted and needed to play some more Taiko drum. It's absolutely justifying that purchase, which is all I wanted and needed from it. And that, I think, yes, it does, brings me through all of my, and by extension, all of our currently playing games.
Nice.
So, Paula, let me tee you in to tell us a bit more about this week's topic.
For this week's topic, we bring UI in games, and UI being user interfaces and how they relate to the user experience. Why did I think up this topic? Well, I'm currently taking a course on UI in applications in general and UI design. So there you go. We're currently designing a little yarn application. So if you are in the world of knitting, if you are like to crochet and stuff like that, please contact me because I need more volunteers to do a little study here. Anyway, so in video games, the UI is like one of the most crucial parts of the game, maybe, because you really need the user to be able to know what is going on in their game, in the sense of, hey, what is my life like, or what is where the hell am I, or stuff like that. So, for example, you have Zelda 1 where, okay, you have the bare minimum of information that you need, like how many rupees you have, how many hearts you have, how much life out of that maximum you have currently. But since there are limitations, and partially because of design, you have your map that is a big gray box with a little dot which tells you where, more or less, where you are. Which, okay, you're working with the limitations. The game that I think has like no saving grace would be, for example, Skyward Sword. If any of you have played Skyward Sword on the Wii or the Wii U, you notice that there is like this controller thing on the side of the screen, and it's like, hey, this is like totally usable. Like
Yeah, it works. It's not very
like
immersive, right?
it works, but it's not pretty. And yeah, like it's not the best looking UI, but it gives you like all the information you need. In the other side of the spectrum, you have Breath of the Wild's UI, which has like just the right amount of information. And I'm here like just for the sake, like I found this beautiful screenshot on my Switch. Which, by the way, I think it is my editing week, so I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna just put either the image in the description or like just pop it up there in the image because
I
it
see.
is gold.
This was all a Trojan horse to talk about Breath of the Wild.
Always has been.
Always has been. But you have just the right amount of information, like it's on screen, and it isn't like invasive. So it's like it's still aesthetic and it is useful. So as you can see, I've been talking about aesthetic and useful because it is kind of like the dichotomy in user interface. It's like where one does start and where the other ends. Like which one are you prioritizing here? And I don't know. What do you guys think about this topic, or like how important it is, and what are like your personal Hall of Fame and Wall of Shame kind of like UIs in video games?
I mean, I think the best UI I've ever seen is Dead Space. Like it has the best because like not only is the user interface like real world, it's actually useful, right? Like
Mm.
that's the one to me, like because it started that whole idea of like, why not put all of your all the information that the user needs in order to understand, like, health, ammo, all that stuff, make it like literally something within the world. And then for stuff that like, because ultimately, obviously not everything can just be practical things, because you're going to have to interface with something. But what that game does is such a brilliant thing where it's like, whenever you interface with something, right? It like pulls it up off of his wrist and then like holograms in front of your character, so that you're constantly in the actual world while looking through menus and whatnot. Um, and the menus are so clean, and like they do get this feeling of like, this is a world, right? Like this is a program that was designed and like fits into this world. And like for me, I just find it like, it's very intuitive, because you see it, you know what you're gonna have to do with it. But also you're just like, holy shit, you put everything that I need directly into this goddamn game. Like I don't know. To me, it's just so impressive. And like every time I play that game, and then the remake in particular, like really, I think they even like, I think they took the dreams of the Dead Space team of like making everything, something that you could like, that like actually exists within its world, and like just upped it even further and made it even better. So that to me is like my strongest use of it. And also I have to say VR is really starting to kick ass when it comes to UI. In the sense of like, I think in particular of Resident Evil 4. I'll come back to it VR, but like those like you had calls, right, on which I actually think the new Resident Evil 4 remake actually fucks this up entirely, because they had these like video calls, right, where you would be like, you get this call and it would like split off to almost like a Solid Snake thing, like where you see two of them. And in the VR one, you get the satellite phone and you get to open it up when the call comes. Oh my God, is that cool? Like you're holding this thing and you like click it open, and then you're holding the video call. So you're actually looking at the thing. And now this piece of like what was originally a cutscene has become this piece of user interface where you're like, you get to actually hold on to this thing and like interact with the game. And then obviously menus and everything, you're just like clicking and moving things around with your hands and stuff. It just feels so much more tactile. Whereas in Resident Evil 4 remake, it's now just a floating like picture of a person when they're talking, as if you are looking at like a screen or something, but you just see their face and you're like, where's it coming from? I don't understand. Like, this is kind of weird. Anyway, those are two things for me. I hope I'm getting it right here when it comes to user interface, but that to me feels like part of it, because it's basically just everything that the user has to interface with, right?
I'm looking at the Dead Space one. It's amazing. I just love how it looks. Also, I forgot this was a game where the life bar was like in the backpack.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah, it's on your back. It's like this thing that's like connected to his spine. Like goes like shot. It's fucking yeah, but it's really cool. Yeah. So it's like literally measuring his life essence, basically.
Got nothing else to say. That's just
it's fucking cool, right? I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, I'm just like, whenever I talk about it, I'm just like, it's just fucking cool, Like, it's one of those things where you're like, there's not a lot to say about it besides it's like, that's pretty dope. But yeah, I don't know. I think VR is really pushing the envelope when it comes to user interface, and like, there are some games that I think are notoriously bad. Like, personally, Divinity Original Sin 2, would have played that fucking game. That UI sucks ass. It's just like, it's so cluttered, and there's just so much shit everywhere, and it's like, holy fuck. Like, that's where my catchphrase, I'm here to play a game, not sort inventory.
You love the inventory sorting. Did I get that wrong?
No, I don't like inventory sorting. I mean, only in some games. Only if the game is designed around it do I like it.
I thought that was your favorite.
I like it in Safe Room, but that's it. You know what I mean? Like in that one, it's like you look at this thing and it's just like, oh my God, like holy shit. Like it's like a feeling of like, I don't know about you all, but like sometimes I feel like I'll play certain games and the UI feels over designed, right? Like it's like there's like so much of it that you're like, oh, what is going on here? Like, where am I even supposed to look next? Or it just has like useless tabs to it, Like you ever open up a menu in a game and it's like you got 6 fucking tabs and you're like, I only need 2 of these, Like the rest are like just shit that you're like, what is this even here for? I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with this thing. And yeah, I that sort of drives me a little nuts. It's like when you're trying to overload or like put way too much information in your UI. So anyway, that's enough about me. I've said.
But I think that speaks to an interesting thing, right? Like, and I was just thinking about like the UI in the game screen, not even in menus and stuff like that when you mentioned that. And Paula's just put up the most beautiful MMO screenshot where maybe 10% of the screen is gameplay.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes my head hurt. And I think it speaks to maybe form over function, right? Like,
Yeah.
yes, you need to display all this information, but also you want to do it in a way that's aesthetically pleasing, that doesn't break immersion, that fits in with the style of what you're doing. And I think the poster child for that's got to be the Persona series, particularly Persona 5.
Yeah.
I think that game nailed form and function all wrapped up in one. And I think it's interesting the two screenshots and the two Zelda games that you brought up there, Paula. It's specifically Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild. Skyward Sword is all function and very little form. Or rather, yeah, no, I meant that. And Zelda has Breath of the Wild has much more of a consideration for form while retaining lots and lots of functionality. I think what I lean towards is generally more minimalist designs. First one that probably springs to mind is Muramasa Rebirth, because that game gives you so much pertinent information while taking very little screen real estate up. Doesn't give you any button prompts. It trusts you to know how to do those bits. But it gives you the 3 blades you've got. It gives you in a really aesthetically pleasing way an idea as to the strength of those. You can see your health, you can see experience, you can see your level, you can see your combo, and you can also see the item that you've got to hand. The second one that immediately sprung to mind as well is Risk of Rain 2, not because it's minimalist so much as because in the context of just how much information you need to have available to you, it does a remarkable job of keeping that streamlined and accessible and visually pleasing while retaining a ludicrous amount of form and function for both. And I think that one's hard to ignore. I also thought about Peace Walker on the PSP. That game has a very, very minimalist UI that then pops out when you pull certain things in. So if you're holding left or right on the D-pad to pull up your item or weapon wheels respectively, it then pops into the screen, but in a very sort of clever way that for the most part keeps what is already quite a small screen as free as it possibly can. And then the last one that jumped out at me was Neon White, because that game
is sick. Yeah,
it's got a great UI. It hews quite close to the Persona mold in that it's very, very form focused, but it does give you all the function you need without doing too much. I mean, there is a lot of flavor guff behind the character portrait, but I think this game benefits probably from the fact that you're so laser focused on what your view is centered on because of the nature of that game, that as long as everything visually works aesthetically and doesn't take up too much space, it's okay. And it absolutely does that. The other thing that's occurred to me as I'm sort of bringing all of those examples up is actually the unsung hero of unobtrusive UI is probably the Nintendo DS, right? Because that family of consoles, including the DS and the 3DS, give you the option to move a lot of that UI out of the way for the player. So take, for example, the Etrian Odyssey series or Shin Megami Tensei 4. Those games move almost everything down to the bottom screen to give you a clear, unobstructed top screen experience. Shin Megami Tensei especially has got a beautiful sort of game world to interact with, particularly for the hardware, and it frees all of that 3D screen up to give you that and shunts all of the Persona information down to the bottom where it can breathe and be fleshed out and be full, with some lovely character art and portraits as are the norm for that series. And Etrian Odyssey, from a UI bleeding into UX perspective, gives you that whole map drawing suite in a way that it's going to be interesting to see how they do that in the HD remakes, let's put it that way, because the beauty of that series on DS was that the map was always in your hand without hampering the core RPG gameplay in any way whatsoever. Because you have that stylus, it's all separate. And I think if those games move towards an auto map system, which was always an option, but if that's the most viable way to play those games on modern hardware without the dual screens, I think you lose a lot of what made those games so compelling and so interesting. And I think we could talk for hours about a variety of DS games that utilize those two screens in a compelling and an interesting sort of UI manner.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if games like that pull the emulation tactic of just
putting a second screen to
pull
the
up the
side.
second screen.
Yeah.
Putting it to the side, maybe not, but I would imagine that it's just like you press a button and it pops up like a menu, right? Because that's all it is, right? The bottom screen was just a menu that you didn't have to press a button to access.
Yeah.
Which is like nice,
for
right?
example, it can be executed well or poorly. For example, in Pokemon Shining Pearl, they did the what was the name of the thing? The Pocket. Yeah, the Pokewatch. Was on a little corner of the screen, and you could just hide it, or you could just keep it visible. But the way that it worked is that it felt a lot less what's the word for it, intuitive to work around it in a way. So I'm fearing for the Adrian Odyssey remakes because of how, for example, I played Persona Q. I haven't played the Adrian Odyssey, but it's the same idea of drawing your own map. So you could just keep moving and at the same time just draw the map without having to pause the game. Which in this case, like in the remakes, you're probably have to. No, you have the auto map, so that shouldn't be a problem. But still, if you had to draw the thing, for example, or like if you had to put an icon, let's say in your map, you have to pause the game. Like, how do you not have to pause the game to put your icon in the Switch version?
To be fair,
they're what? Sorry,
what?
Etrian Odyssey, they're turn-based games.
Yeah, they're turn-based games, but what's the point? That's
the action wouldn't need to pause, right? Like you just wouldn't take the next step.
Right, it's
a dungeon.
That's another way to put it.
It won't be as streamlined. I think that's the frustration. But to be fair, it wouldn't be game breaking.
Yeah, it just slows you down. It's a little less fun.
Yeah,
it's not as intuitive, and you can't see the action window to then map things onto. So it would be an impediment. It's probably not going to be a game breaker, but it will take a lot of the charm out of the experience for sure.
Yeah, I mean, also hot take. I feel like Persona 5's UI is overbaked a little bit. It's like a little. It's like I feel like that one is actually a really good example of maybe leaning too far into form over function. Like I think it's great. Maybe even actually maybe even less Persona 5 and even more Strikers. Because playing Strikers, I actually felt like that UI in particular, like because I suppose in Persona 5, like there's a lot of stuff that you do need, but let's be real, Strikers is a goddamn hack and slash. You don't need that many menus. And this damn thing has so many menus. And like when you're going to shop and stuff, they have this little AI character that you meet in the game, and it's always like hopping around and like opening things up for you, and it's just like at times you're just like, okay, I get it, right? It's like you have style. Can I fucking buy my knife now, please? You know what I mean? Like it's like there's that mixture of like it is a really, really hard balance to hit, right? Because it's like, yeah, well, you want your stuff to be kind of stylish and cool and fun, but then it's also like if it takes me a minute to get to the shit that I need, I'm gonna get really freaking annoyed, right? And then suddenly you've leaned too far into one area, and it just kind of ruins it a little,
Yeah.
Another example I think of maybe not so good UI could be the Xenoblade X, Xenoblade Chronicles X, because of how
Shit, you
tiny
mean
the font
Xenoblade in
is.
general?
Yeah, but
They
especially
definitely
in
mean
X, like
MMO, don't they?
yeah, but especially like on X, like they tried. There has been an attempt to like at least make it functional, even though the form isn't like that good.
Mm-hmm.
But the text is tiny, and like I'm like I use glasses for reasons, sir. So I'm trying to read what the UI says, and I am not able to. So that's like another way where the UI can it is overcrowded, yes, but it also like the text is so tiny that it's like, why would you even mind putting like so much information that I can't read?
And that's an interesting modern problem, eh? Like, I don't know what I'm sure there's a reason for this. Like, and it's likely resolution issues and stuff. But like, I don't fully, to be fair, comprehend because I'm not a game designer. Like when it comes to why it is that text seems to be so much smaller these days, right? Like I've just noticed there's a lot of games that seem to have this issue where like you open it up and you're like, what? Text so tiny. Obviously on Steam Deck, that's usually a pretty big issue, and that is fair because those games were never designed. Some of them were never designed to be played on such a small screen, but they have a zoom in option that like solves that problem. But thinking more like console games, right, where like you boot it up and you're just like, like, got like a little dialogue box and it's like, what the fuck is that?
But I think that's the Switch again, right? Like it's things that were designed for a big screen, and then suddenly you're playing them on the Switch. I think that a lot of the problem is from the fact that there are big screen games being played more frequently on a small screen.
Yeah, and I don't even
But
know
then
how
I
you
suppose
solve
even
that problem.
you do sometimes see that problem even still with like those games on the big screen where the font's not properly adjusted.
Yeah, but for some of the PC games, you have the option to make the UI bigger. Like for example, in Timberborn, you could make all the information show like at a bigger scale and use more of the screen, which I personally had to use. But it made the experience like so much more pleasant in a way because I didn't have to like really stare at the screen to know what I was looking at. I just could just like make the UI bigger and then I was on my merry way to have a good time playing. And about games that are technically designed for console for like bigger screen and then like shrank down because of the Switch, for example. You have the other cases where they take in this into the consideration, which is mainly like Switch exclusives. Not gonna lie. So, for example, on Shin Megami Tensei 5, like the UI still takes a bigger chunk of the screen that I would like, but it is very readable. Like you can see like each little thing on the screen that is important to you at the moment. And it's still effective on a smaller screen because I've played this game portable like a lot, even though I'm not playing it right now, but that is not the point. And it doesn't detract from the experience. And like as for example, trying to play The Witcher on anything that is not like very powerful would be. And I will die on that hill. Witcher, it looks muddy on anything other than a next gen system or the PC.
Oh yeah, of course it does. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Do you guys have anything else you want to add? I feel pretty satisfied.
Only
I
probably
just
one
want
more.
to.
Oh, go on. Yeah, go ahead.
Never mind.
Go on, Rick.
I was just going to say maybe one more in terms of the form over function book. The world ends with you. My memory of that is that UI being not terrible, but very, very busy, particularly in the menu, sort of digging through pins and lots of sort of text over text over text. Go ahead, Paula. That's me.
Yeah, my last and I have to pick one because they're like otome games in general have like a very pretty UI in my opinion. and they are like very intuitive to use and all that stuff. And I have to give a shout out to Café Enchanté because of how it is very functional and it is very aesthetic. Like it wears that cafe or coffee shop like ambient or style on its sleeve. Like I just sent you a couple of screenshots and it is like so pretty and it just fits the tone of the story so well. That is my another final honorable mention right there. Hello?
Hello.
What?
Oh,
Hello,
I was
what?
saying that I don't know, you were both very silent, so
Well,
I'm
I
just trying to
was
work out
worried
why one of
that
the guys
I
doesn't have a head.
disconnected.
Just trying to work out why one of the guys doesn't have a head.
Oh, sorry. I had to pick up my dog because she's going crazy, so I didn't see the thing.
That I was gushing about Café Enchanté's UI because it is so pretty.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I
And
find visual novels in general, like usually their UI is pretty good. You would friggin' hope so, right? They're not like
Kind of
much on
has
the
to be, right?
screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
If your UI is shit in a visual novel, you're fucked.
Mhm. Right. So I think that roundly takes us on to how long to beat the game. And I believe, Paula, it is your turn to pick the game that Alex and
Is it?
I will be guessing in relation to. For those of you who are tuning into this for the first time, first of all, where have you been?
Hostile.
Yeah, definitely. Second, there are 5 points up for grabs this week between myself and Alex. The game that Paula picks, we will be guessing the main plus, and 100% times, courtesy of the user submitted times at howlongtobeat.com. We will also be trying to get closest to the correct answer for a question Paula's going to ask us about that game's web page on the site. That is worth 2 bonus points, so a total of 5 points up for grabs. And Paula, what game are we picking this week, or what game are we discussing this week?
I am tempted to be cheeky and actually handpick one, but I should
Nope, that's
probably
not how
leave
the
it to
game
that.
That's not how this game
Okay.
works.
Hold on, I think it broke. Oh no, it didn't broke. It didn't break. It's just me being stupid.
Pick me.
Okay, I didn't pick this, I swear, because I was gonna pick Breath of the Wild, but it seems that the goddess highly wants us to go with Twilight Princess.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Mm,
Oh man, I loved that game when I was a kid.
not my favorite.
I haven't
Yeah,
played
let
it in
me check
ages. It
real
might
quick.
be bad, but I don't want to go back and find out. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
You know, it's like I'm good. I'm good. All right, I think I actually
Okay.
have times for this one.
Okay, let me try to find a good question for you guys for the bonus round.
All right, I've got my
Okay,
times.
let's go with this one. How many people have actually beaten the game on How Long to Beat?
Oh,
Ooh. Right.
Ooh, that's actually interesting because this would predate.
Predate the site, so potentially, yeah, those
Yeah.
times would be skewed a bit.
Okay, I got mine.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's the weird thing, right? Like, I always think about it, it's like, well, for games that were released when the site is like active and whatnot. Usually they have a lot, but it's such a crapshoot for these older games. Which is
Question for you: is that inclusive of the? Because it got a port to Wii U, didn't it? Does the listing on HLTB have that?
All I can say is that there are people listing the times on Wii U. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Oh, I guess we should have asked: is this the HD version or the normal version?
It includes all the versions.
I think aren't they two separate? Oh, maybe they aren't. Okay.
So it includes the GameCube times, the Wii, and the Wii U times. Well, and emulated, but that is a given.
Might have screwed up then. I thought this was just the Wii version and GameCube version.
I have to say,
So I don't actually know if there's that much of a difference, but I'm just thinking because Wind Waker HD had some quality of life improvements that I think speed the game up, but maybe they added stuff to it too. I don't know if they did that for Twilight Princess.
Twilight Princess didn't have many quality of life improvements that would affect the. Oh, there's one thing that could affect one of the times because an extra dungeon was added with the amiibo.
Interesting.
Well, let's see.
Yeah, let's find out. I've submitted. I'm good.
My times are in. Yeah.
I'm not horribly confident, but this is what I remember.
You guys are boring. Okay.
Why, are we the same again?
We best not be.
Okay, for main story, both Ric and Alex has said 35 hours. So both of you get a point.
Yeah.
But
No.
main story, for the record, it is 37 and a half hours. So.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was around that area. Most Zelda games are.
As for main plus extras, both of you said 45 hours.
I think we had the same strategy. Did you do 10, 10, 10? Because that's all I did.
Not quite.
Oh, then maybe you might get a point.
A little bit of divergence coming.
Yeah. Main boss sides on how long to beat is 45 and a half hours.
Oh, we were like spot on. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then maybe my strategy
Finally,
will
you guys, you decided to not share a Braincell. And Ric has said 50 hours for 100%, and Alex said 55 hours for 100%. And the completionist time is 56 hours, so Alex takes a point.
There you go.
Better than nothing.
And finally, you guys seem to be connected because both of you, even though it is a different nomenclature, said 3,100.
You're taking the piss.
Are you serious? We both picked a decimal one. Wait. Okay. Wait. Were we right? Like maybe you should tell us if we're right, and then we can repick one. Like, don't tell us the time yet. Like,
I mean,
the amount. Are we correct?
What do you mean the time? I already told you the time.
No, sorry. I mean, you said we both picked 3.1, 3.1K, right? So is that the right amount?
Yeah, 3.1K.
Like, don't tell us what the right amount is, because we can re-guess if we're wrong.
Or do we guess something else? Do we have another question? Or do we both take 2 points?
I want to re-guess because I think that'd be more interesting.
It's more interesting.
I don't mind losing.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead and re-guess.
Okay, so it's not right? Is that what you're saying?
Is not right.
Okay, thanks. That's all right. It's not right. I guess it wouldn't be fair if we asked if it was too high or too low.
No,
I'm not gonna tell you which way is not right. So.
Okay. Shit, it's just not right.
Okay, my amended time is in.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. That's it. That's my final answer.
Can we just take a moment to appreciate that out of all of the numbers?
That's kind of crazy.
That is nuts.
And both the wrong answer.
Still. Okay, go on, Paula.
Yeah, let me check real quick because I might need to do a thing here. Like, is there like a way to see like one more decimal here? No, maybe it's not needed. I don't think it's needed because it's probably rounded up. Anyway, so Alex said 3.5K and Ric said 3,600. The winner here is Alex, and he is spot on.
Hey!
It is 3.5K. Like it would have been funny if they had like a second decimal.
Yeah, maybe Everdred actually knows. Let me look I want to look this up now. I want to see.
There must be a way to count it down.
I'm currently like trying to.
Oh, there are 2 versions of Twilight Princess on the site.
Oh, you absolutely can. So it looks like 2387 on Wii, 863 on GameCube. So that's what 3.
Oh no, but it doesn't add up to 3 point.
It does. It's been rounded up from 3.4. Like you're absolutely still right.
Oh, you mean at the bottom? Oh, I see.
At the very bottom, yeah.
Oh, okay.
A very nice 69% of completions are on the Wii.
Nice. Oh, I see.
But that does suggest that the Wii U times are potentially elsewhere as well.
Yeah, I don't think they're being necessarily counted because they are elsewhere. I just looked it up now, and there's a Twilight Princess HD time that actually has very different times.
Yeah, it is weird because if you see like the platforms and the listing for the original one, it does have Wii U at the end.
It's possible that some
15.9 old.
Yeah, but it's interesting looking at the thing now. The platforms only say GameCube and Wii, so like likely those are individuals who simply went and logged it on there, without recognizing that there was another version, or they played the GameCube version on the Wii U, right? Because you can do that. You could play the Wii version. I should say you could play that on the Wii U, right? So if you just played the Wii version there, then you could say I played it on the Wii U, even though I didn't play Twilight Princess HD.
Yeah, if you just put the disc in compatibility mode. So that is a clean sweep of 5 points from Alex.
Yeah, you still got 3 points though.
I still got
2 points. Yeah, mine 2.
Okay. Which puts me a marginal lead on 6, with Alex on 5 and Paula on 1. But it is Alex v Paula next week in the last game of this game week. So there is every chance for Paula to make this very interesting.
Anything can happen. Who knows? All right, well, that's it for this week. We'll see you all next week. Toodaloo.
Shitty bye.
Bye.